So Rick Thompson, of course, with us. Mr. Hash Bash, and then starting off the show with us is Josh Cover, Mets Cafe, and many other things. Been around the block, also as a lawyer. Happy to have him here. We're at the Mets Cafe Lowell store. I'm at the Mets Cafe Lowell store, and introduce you to a couple people here before too long. But the store's spent a long time transitioning into a new system, and it was difficult. It was challenging, and it's getting up and running today. So we're here in appreciation of that and in support, and recognize these guys just for a lot of good work along the way. Hey, Josh, how you doing?
It looks like he's doing great. Do the sponsor video, Jimmy.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Just making sure. Oh, there we go.
Looking for signs of life, apparently. Jazz Cabbage Cafe is, of course, sponsored by Stone Depot with their exceptional cannabis, Redemption Canna, Real Leaf Solutions, that Detroit Nutrient Company, ProGreenMI.com, Custom 420 promos featuring their cultureclothing.club, and let's never forget Med Cafe.
Perfect. All right. If you wouldn't have said anything, that almost might not have happened again. So I'll let that go.
Sometimes I jump the gun and I remind you before you had a chance to actually do it, and then but this time I think I got it the right time. Doctor, leave me alone. Good afternoon.
I know he's faced a loss in his family recently, so our condolences.
Oh, sorry for that. Yes. So on location at Meds Cafe in Lowell, Michigan, Jamie, right?
Yeah, I was going to be in the lobby, but there's a lot of like music and people coming in and out. But there's a really cool backdrop out there that I'll walk around and show a little bit.
Those seem like very typical lobby activities. So
yeah. It's kind of special nonetheless.
Yeah. How many Meds Cafes do we have now? 4? 5?
Fourth, another one around the corner. Josh.
Should make it a goal for
Jamie. We got 4 right now, and then we should be opening up one.
Confirmed.
Okay.
So we were going to we'll walk around here a little bit and introduce you to a couple people, but we might get blessed with a check-in from the man himself here. Talked to him a little while ago and said you can come on if you can. I'll send you the link. So we might get a nice extra bonus guest along the way today. Check it out. Jamie Cooper, of course, last week we broadcast from her event in Lansing at the Causeway Hotel, the Mardi Gras event with Sensi.
That's fun. I heard about that one. I didn't go.
And I thought that was pretty cool. So was people that we had on that day and stuff that we were going over and so forth.
I'm excited for today's broadcast for many reasons, but one of them is because Jamie Lowell can't smoke cannabis today. He's in a place where it's not allowed. The rest of us will just make him jealous. Come on now.
I have a version of that kind of almost at every broadcast where I do oftentimes have to go outside if I want to
but
consume too much, but I have to go off parcel here.
that is kind of comical.
Yeah, it's okay. Come to the territory, celebrate with everybody, and then really appreciate it later on when I can do it.
Comes with the rest of the hypocrisy the industry has to offer.
Yeah, I like to give it up every once in a while, My tolerance, a couple hours sometimes.
We've been on Jazz Cabbage Cafe when people from the Cannabis Regulatory Agency have texted me to say, hey, you just said something that I want to clarify. So we know that they oftentimes watch the show, or at least when there's interesting stuff on it that they do. So we should,
They signed off long ago by now. If they were watching today.
Does the law say that you can't use cannabis at all on a at a
You can't smoke cigarettes, can't smoke anything, can't use any.
Can't even eat
I
medibles.
think,
Jeff
I
Silver.
think under medical you can use topical on parcel possibly. I think I kind of remember that being.
but you can't ingest anything. I mean, technically, this is vaporizing. So
You can't vape, you can't smoke, you can't use any cannabis or tobacco or alcohol.
wow,
on parcel. That's right, Josh? Yeah.
that's
Yes.
Adam mentions contradictions. We all know that in the regulatory agency, since they're all employees of the state of Michigan, none of them can be current cannabis consumers.
that
And
makes
that's
no
always,
sense at all.
it's always seemed like a contradiction that demanded correction to me. But I think, the wheels of change in that direction are going to be slow for the state of Michigan to agree that they will stop drug testing. Go ahead, Adam.
I think the only people that work for the state that should be allowed to use cannabis are CRA employees.
I don't know. Some of those people at the Department of Motor Vehicles might be a little bit nicer at Secretary of State offices if they.
Yeah, but it doesn't. There's no real connection. Is my point.
Well, there wouldn't be. You're right.
It makes sense that the CRA people smoked weed.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like it makes sense that the guys with the guns go to the gun range and learn how to use them. I mean, and are required to go yearly for a test.
Make sure you're still competent. Jamie has a special guest. Jamie, who's joined you today?
This is Alex Betterly, the manager of this Lowell store, and someone who had to really contribute a lot and put in some extra time and effort to get things ready for this new system today, and it's much appreciated. So I want to recognize Alex for a lot of good, hard work.
Are these all people like commenting and shit?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah. You remember, I think you met, obviously, Josh, I would know.
Yeah.
And you met, I think, Rick at the MICIA conference.
Yeah, I think so.
Smoke rings headed your way, man.
If you make it to Ann Arbor over the Hash Bash weekend,
Yeah,
I'm trying to encourage people to do that. It's the weekend of April 1st, but things get started a little bit before and go a little after.
Oh shit, nice.
Get to meet Mr. Hash Bash himself.
Hell yeah. Cool.
What, Adam?
So you remember the movie 8 Mile?
Yeah.
Right? Now, you see Adam. Do you remember his presence?
Nobody remembers anything. Come on.
Really? No shit.
Tell people where you were in that movie, though, so they can.
All right. It's real. I'll say it real quick. The whole movie's about me. No joke. The whole movie's about the black guy trying to take the white guy to go meet the record producer to cut a demo. I play the record producer. So I'm in the radio station scene. I'm in the fight scene and the fuck scene. I'm in the radio station scene where he goes to meet the record producer and he catches his buddy banging his girl and he beats his ass. So you can find me easily on YouTube by searching Rabbit Betrayed. But that was 20 years ago, man. It ain't the panty dropper it used to be, let me tell you.
I'm looking at the four of us on the screen, and I think you're the only one that's ever actually been on the motion picture screen myself. I have my name on a couple credits, but I don't have any visuals. So, Adam, that's a credit none of us can claim.
No, it was cool. It was a cool thing. I mean, to see an actual movie made.
Yeah.
To watch the lighting director decide he didn't like the color of the light coming out. So 14 different guys had to come and make the change. And it took 20 minutes. So we figured out that next time they did that, we were going to go smoke a joint because we had time. And every time they took a break, it was 20, 25 minutes. Smoked a lot of weed.
Now we know why motion pictures cost $25 million to make anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, so Rick, did you get an official update from Charlie earlier? One that could be conveyed? I mean, I've heard some stuff, but
I I did not. What I did hear from Charlie is that on March 6th, which is the next Ann Arbor City Council meeting, that there'll be a definitive statement made at that point.
Okay.
So perhaps next week on Jazz Cabbage Cafe, we might be able to have something more definitive about the fate of Monroe Street Fair. For those that are not familiar, Monroe Street Fair is a companion event to the Hash Bash. Hash Bash, of course, way older, way larger, or way longer, rather. Monroe Street Fair draws a great number of people, but the fire chief and police chief have asked to either reschedule or relocate the event because of a conflicting University of Michigan spring football game on the same day. So we tried to convince them that they can handle it. Everything is cool. Don't worry about it. You know, don't worry, be happy. But I don't think don't worry, be happy is what the police chief and fire chief do as their job. So it's been a struggle.
Hey, Max, I know people recognize this name.
Hey,
The basis of the case, Camorra and others were involved with, it led to uncovering a lot of the shenanigans in the state forensics lab.
absolutely true.
Hey, Max, you're doing okay, man. His son was taken away for a really long time, very, very highly inappropriately, cruelly, horrible.
I will say one of the things that was greatly missing at the last Ann Arbor meeting, and one thing I hope they bring up at the next, is how and why the Monroe Street Fair was created, and how and why the university banned vending throughout the city, except everywhere but Monroe Street. These are things that these people don't know because they weren't there. They weren't a part of it. They're just looking at this nonsense coming from the police and fire, which the police and fire have dealt with this in the past. And, it used to be worse. So, if they look at the origins of this stuff, they'll see that things have gotten a lot better. The city has a capricious maybe argument. I mean, the fire marshal and all that. I understand it, but they've dealt with it before, and it worked out just fine. So, the Monroe Street Fair came at a time when the city was overtaken with street vendors who would walk up and down the streets selling stuff to people who would be getting in and out of cars. And it was dangerous.
Very disruptive.
It was very disruptive. The city was a mess. And at the same time, they were arresting people on the Diag for pot. So things have changed drastically in town since they banned vending. There was a city council meeting. We went, we talked about the fact that, we don't need street vendors if we have this street fair. And the reason we have, look who's there.
Okay, I'm there. Okay, good.
And
Hey, everybody. Hey, Rick.
Hey, John.
Where's my fucking sound?
It's there. We hear you. And
Okay, now what?
you're good.
Everybody can hear me except me.
Hey, can hear you and see you fine, man.
Well, I don't know what to do. I can't hear anything.
Probably got an audio. Oh, no, can't hear us.
Headphones plugged in and just need to be unplugged, maybe?
Or you
You
didn't.
admire John while he's trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Audio adjustment or something like that, but he'll get
So
it.
the nuts and
He's
bolts
been
of the
working with
Monroe,
these things for a while now. He's surprisingly good at this stuff. He'll get it.
the nuts and bolts of the Monroe Street Fair story is that clearly the city isn't capable of handling that kind of crowd. They're freaking out for no apparent reason, and we hope that they fix it up.
Okay.
the city has very little to do with
I
the
don't get it.
Except licensing it.
I don't
So
get
when
it.
you get the permit.
Right.
Hello, Bill. I don't get it though. I can't hear nothing.
No, I like that one maybe.
Oh, that's good.
There we go.
Well, we
You
can have a one-sided
here's some advice, John.
conversation.
Maybe that's it. Although I don't know if that's really it or not, because muting is for your not hearing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
ASL.
I do not know ASL. I was just fucking around. People that are deaf don't write me letters. I'm sorry. It was bad on my
Alan
part.
Brook, where you at, baby?
What's happening, man? I'm doing all right.
This is supposed to lower volume, lower right, lower. Chat with everyone in studio.
Look, as soon as John comes on, everybody wants to say hi. When we were all on here,
Right. Nobody
wanted
said
to say hi. I know.
Having issues, yes.
All right.
I don't know. It's here's some advice. How much of it's usable? I don't know, John. You got it, man. Come on.
In sign language.
I do need sign
Deaf
language.
Sign language.
That's universal.
Bullshit,
Though.
is it? What do you mean I need sign language?
Talking to me.
Two of them.
Talking to me, because I tried sign language and I was fucking around.
Oh, well.
Nothing about this.
I guess I didn't answer anything you asked me, but I can't hear the questions.
John, you want to? I mean, here. Let me try to write it.
Oh, shit.
Can you bring him up on the phone, Jamie, and maybe give him some instruction? Or
Yeah.
Yes, if I'm on team, or make it so we can take people.
that's live TV for you,
I've never had
folks.
this happened before.
Yeah. Boy, I've said that before.
Oh, what?
Phone call.
Phone call.
All right, while they sorting that out, we still have Josh and Adam here. Josh Covert, Jamie's mentioning that you guys are in the middle of switching out point of sale systems. It's kind of necessary to update your systems every once in a while, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Try
it
what?
is. With the different software
Leave
provided,
studio?
that was when necessary for the change. So we decided to go with trees versus Flow Hub. I'm not really here to talk about one other, but for our needs, it seemed like trees was going to work out for us. So we made a switch.
For those of us who are consumers, we're familiar with Metric, which is the state's track and trace system, but we may not realize as consumers that there's an intermediary computer system that's necessary for the retailers to work with the Metric program, and that individual retailers can choose different software systems to make that interaction. Sometimes you'll go to one retail center and their computers will be down, so to speak, but you go to the one next door and they're working just fine. It's because it's not the state that's down, it's just their individual processing system. And those systems have a lot to do with how quickly you're able to process transactions and how accurate you are able to be. Wouldn't that be true, Josh?
That is true. There's a lot of differences between the providers. And one of the things that I think the consumers will notice with what we have going on with trees, and one of the reasons we made the switch, what was it makes handling discounts much easier. We can group items with discounts and apply discounts automatically versus having to manually do a lot of it, which made having discounts store wide or across all our stores a little more difficult. Whereas now we can put them into the system, be a lot more creative with it,
Hear us, John?
and show the customer a
That's
lot better.
good, but what about me?
discounts
I
and
can't
deals.
see. I can't hear nobody. I like to have a token of that what's Rick smoking,
I'd like you to too.
Oh, well. I think you better
Can you hear
try me
us?
another time. This ain't going to work.
Oh fuck, that sucks.
Sorry. Hate to waste all your time like this. No.
Oh, you're all right. It's good to see you, man. We'll set this up differently next time around. This is
Wow,
before.
I turned the audio off so I wouldn't have to hear my music. There it is. Hold on. Duh.
You got it, John? You feeling better about it?
Yeah, I'm good now.
Oh, fantastic. That's
I had
great.
to mute on my sound because I would have my radio on. And I
Easy
didn't
to
want
do.
it to go on here, so I put the mute on like a dumbass.
John,
Okay.
for record, I had faith in you all along. I said he'll figure this out.
You're taping me?
Yeah,
Something
no
like
way.
Okay, hi everybody. Nice to see and hear you all.
Oh, John, thanks for joining us today on Jazz Cabbage. It's wonderful.
420.
Is it? Oh,
Yep.
wow.
It's what?
So, John, we're live from the Mets Cafe in Lowell,
Lowell, Michigan?
Lowell, Michigan. Yep.
Wow. I was in Lowell, Massachusetts last fall.
Yep, that was the first one, I think.
That was for Jake Kerouac's 100th birthday celebration.
Did you read poetry there? Because it seems like poetry would be positive at a Kerouac event.
I read with David Amram, who used to play with Jake Kerouac.
That's great.
Him and Jake Kerouac invented what I do. So it was big thrills.
That's awesome. So we've got Hash Bash sort of coming up pretty quick here. It's last day of February, which means it's just about 1 month until April 1st for Hash Bash. John, you're going to be on stage again?
Pardon?
Are you going to be at Hash Bash again this year?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy's nodding his head. Yes.
I want to be there. Last year I was ill. I was in the hospital, I think. I had a terrible fall. But I'm kind of recovered from that.
Legally Nifty asks, wasn't there just a couple break-ins businesses in Lowell? Yep, there were.
There was, yeah.
Say what?
Who was it, Loom and somebody else?
It was exclusive, and I'm not sure who the other ones.
Oh,
Probably
okay.
Loom.
Maybe.
But-
We don't know for sure. I guess for sure. But
Exclusive for sure.
was not here, fortunately. Had to deal with that. But that sucks.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They're talking about some thefts at cannabis retail places recently in Lowell, where they happen to be
Right around,
broadcasting.
the other stores, not here, but nearby.
Wow.
Yep. So,
Are you guys here to protect them?
yeah. That's why I'm hanging around. That's why I had to do the show from here, so everybody would feel safe.
Yeah.
Have you
that's
seen
good.
Jamie's abs lately? Wow. Even Josh Covert's laughing at that.
Yes,
when
the
he knows.
vibration that you can get out of is the key. So Groovy and Canna Dave, who have my Cannacast, put on a special production yesterday, or was it 2 days ago? Sundays, fun days, and we talked about a bunch of stuff. And they did a live interaction with an audience, plus streamed it, and it was fun. And you got a lot of good cannabis there, and just want to recognize that since he's on here.
Yeah, that was at a fun location. Where was that at, Jamie?
The Planet Ant Theater in Hamtramck.
Oh, the Planet Ant.
Yeah. And that's fun for me because they did a cannabis themed play at Planet Ant, which I was at for a couple of different showings, a couple of iterations of it. And boy, what a fun job. The actors are really amazing people. People that go in the round, as they say, right up into a short audience, getting personal, but being professional. So awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. It blended, some caregiver participation with some licensed participation, kind of an event, which there's room for.
That's good.
Yeah, we ended up getting into a kind of an extended Q&A,
Yeah.
which was always fun.
Legally Nifty said the whole experience was very cool.
Yeah.
Putting your informative Q&A.
Oh.
It's a good review.
Planet Ant is great. It's down in Detroit,
Hamtramck, yep.
Hamtramck area. Yep. So
Hamtramck is surrounded by Detroit.
Which is a city completely surrounded by Detroit. Yeah.
It
So,
used to be Polish.
I've seen a lot of events being announced lately, freshwater, things like that are on the west side or on the northwest side. I'm looking forward to having some more Southeast Michigan events pop off. Arts, Beats, and Eats
Yeah.
just announced that they
It
will
just
have
said you could smoke weed there.
some cannabis
That's a
consumption there.
beautiful
Yes,
thing.
that's a new one.
What's going on in Ann Arbor? I heard the city council didn't want to have the Monroe Street Fair. Talk about smoking on the street.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that a little earlier, John. There's really positivity, but not an update yet. After the March 6th city council meeting, we'll know more. But we're hopeful. We're very hopeful.
My ex-wife was there at a council meeting this week.
Yeah,
She was powerful. She was
Yeah.
powerful. I read her quote in the newspaper. Lenny's awesome.
She was one of the first.
there are people that have organized to give her some credit and give her some space at this event and showcase her a little bit. And the idea that they would now make them move it or cancel it or something, is something that she wanted to address.
Well, I think everybody should go there anyway. Fuck them.
I think they realize that's likely going to happen. I mean, 20 years in a row, then you finally go, an ambulance route.
I mean, didn't they feel we weren't supposed to have a hash bash on the Diag? And we had one, didn't we? I can't remember too well, but it seems like in the last couple of years.
Yeah, the pandemic stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't get the permits out. But Adam and you and others showed up.
We were there. Right
Faith
there.
along with us.
We were there, and the Monroe Street Fair happened because we grew bigger than Dominic's could hold.
Right.
And 1 year,
Charlie seized on it as an opportunity.
Dominic's is a restaurant right on Monroe Street.
right? 1 year we decided to put the band out on the balcony, and the police came and said, "You can't do that. You need a permit." So they got a permit, and it's been a permitted thing ever since.
Yep.
The university.
The students from SSDP are helping out again this year with that.
What?
And Ferndale did, within the council, resolve to decriminalize entheogenic plants. I had nothing to do with it. That's the city I'm from. There's some really good people working on that from the decriminalized nature crowd, and they were successful in another city. There's a few now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now we need to do an event in Ferndale.
Now you're talking.
Next week, we'll talk more about the sneaker ball coming up in Hazel Park.
The what?
It's called the Sneaker Ball. It's a Great Lakes Expungement Network with Josie, a fundraiser to help people get their records expunged
Oh.
at the Social Use Lounge there.
Good idea.
We're giving.
I have mine expunged. We quoted People versus Sinclair to say that it wasn't a narcotic, and my convictions, my three convictions should be reversed, and they did. That was 50 years ago.
I was going to ask. That must have been a while ago.
50 years ago, I got out of prison. Well, a little over 50 years now.
Yeah, this will be the 52nd, right?
Yeah. Hard to keep track when you get to be as old as I am.
So John alludes to his case, and I wanted to talk about the history a little bit more later, but just to put that into scope for people a little bit.
Security. What's he talking about?
They're praising Brad because I think they know it ribs at Adam a little bit.
What is it?
I don't know.
Oh, it don't bother me.
I know. Everybody's awesome on that day, man. We all come together and make a great day, and Brad does help out a lot.
What is the security? I've never seen any.
He just keeps the people outside the area where
That's
the
how
microphone.
slick they are.
Yep.
Except for the one lady
there
last year.
Yeah.
It still slid through nonetheless, and that was
The
awkward.
greatest thing I've ever seen in public was when Adam Brook was up there and he asked everybody to sit down. And everybody sat down. The only one still standing were the police officers. It was the greatest thing I ever seen.
Thank
You
you.
were busted right on the spot
Right.
Adam was the MC for like 20 years around.
until he went to prison.
Yep.
And then the commercial interest kind of took over.
Yep. But as a result of
But that
John's
rich guy
case,
from California to tell him how to make a lot of money.
what's his balls from Harborside?
Steve
I
D.
don't know his name. I can't
D'Angelo, yeah. But so John's case.
I was
in the
so
70s,
angry I didn't go. the next time.
I remember, John. He's not gonna be around this time.
Good.
But John's case was responsible for lifting all laws concerning cannabis for, was it for like 3 weeks or so?
3 weeks.
So there was nothing on the books,
No
no thing
law.
that prohibited or restricted
Right.
The
cannabis
way
at
it
all.
should be now, there was no law.
Yep.
You could do whatever you wanted with weed. You could sell it, you could smoke it, you could have dances with weed. We did all of that for 3 weeks.
And when the lawmakers grouped up to put stuff back on the books, the rally to say that doesn't matter what you do, we're going to
That was
continue
the
to.
idea of the hash bash. Fuck
That's
you.
what kicked off Hash Bash.
And that was the day the new law took effect.
April 1st. We
That
thought
was
it was
also-
the April Fools.
It's actually on April 1st this year too.
Yeah. That's what I mean. This is nice.
That was also the day that Darren McCarty was born, just for the record.
Oh, great.
That's his birthday. Yeah.
Yeah. That year.
Cool.
Richard mentions that he was helped in and out of the building by security. The hash bash takes place on the steps of the law library at the University of Michigan, and there are restrooms inside. So oftentimes people need to get inside in order to use them, or to sit down and take a break, and sometimes people need some assistance with that. So that's why Richard's giving us some praise for that. Thank you, Richard.
Well, that's the kind of security I like, when you don't even know that they're there.
Well, when I got to poop,
We
I
used
put
to
the
have
hands on
our
my
free
butt.
concerts in Ann Arbor. We had the Psychedelic Rangers to replace the police presence. We said the police on the side of a free concert just made people nervous.
Right.
People who were tripping had bad trips. And we didn't want anybody armed or with all of that heavy equipment they wear around their waist. That was just a troublemaking thing, and we wouldn't let them in. So you can run the parking lot if you want, but you can't come on the field. We got the Psychedelic Rangers. If anybody freaks out, they know how to take care of them.
That is an awesome service to have.
It was good. No, it was all
Well,
good.
it was a different era.
Free concert. Nothing
Yeah.
like.
And we have representatives of organizations like Dance Safe and things like that are on our show every once in a while that talk about making sure the psychotropic substances people are taking are safe, and that they have guidance if they happen to run afoul of their trip, you know. But you guys were doing that years and years ago too. This, brotherhood is timeless, right?
I was right. Just like weed.
Yeah.
They've been smoking weed as long as there's been people.
Every time I turn on the computer, it seems like they're pushing back the date for cannabis use with humanity. Like, new evidence discovered pushes back. New evidence discovered humans were using cannabis longer than before known.
Right.
I'm not surprised. Might be the reason we
latched onto it because it was such a good idea for so long.
I can't imagine another plant-based substance where our internal chemistry, our internal biology has adapted in order to take cannabinoids in because of the synergy that we've had with that plant over so many thousands of years. I mean, we don't have that with asparagus. We don't have that with blackberries. We only have that with the cannabis plant.
And it's also everywhere. It's in every part. It's in every corner of the world.
Yep.
Well, Anslinger himself used to say there's no possible way that we could outlaw this plant. It grows everywhere, but
Right.
they went for it.
Figured out a way
As we all know.
by telling big lies. You learned from, what was that guy's
Well,
name?
creating marijuana, the term marijuana.
And Goebbels to tell the big lie and tell it
Goebbels,
over and
right.
over again until you have the
Right.
fascist reality that we had called the drug laws. And then Nixon, of course, took it to the new level of the war on drugs.
That's probably why we don't.
Where cannabis was placed on the controlled substances list for no scientific reason.
Whatever happened to our lawsuit about the controlled substances? We're trying to get it removed from that. Remember, Rick?
Oh yeah, sure do. You and Camorn Law with in conjunction with Cannabis Council and others.
Right.
Sure. I believe that was Jamie Lowell knows better than I what the resolution to that lawsuit was, but I believe it was set aside. I believe it's no
Which
longer a
one?
valid suit. To remove cannabis from the controlled substances list in Michigan, the John Sinclair lawsuit.
Yeah, it got kicked on technical grounds. Yep.
Yep.
No standing issues. With the Attorney General saying that
Well, they said we had to have somebody who was charged.
Right.
somebody who
Right.
was affected by
They
it,
never
I guess.
defended.
Josh would define that
That's
better.
what they did. That's how they sent me to prison. They said if you want to challenge these laws, you have to have a conviction.
Right.
I challenged it for 2.5 years before trial. It went to the Supreme Court of Michigan. They threw it back to the trial court in Detroit, and they said you have to bring a conviction in order for us to adjudicate these issues. And so I went in and took the conviction, and then they gave me 9.5 to 10 years in prison without an appeal bond. I've been out on appeal for 2.5 years. I never missed a court date.
Another
The system
twist
can
while they
get
were
you if
trying
they
to
want
fuck you up. Yep.
System will win if it wants to. I know. They move the goalposts. The whole question of standing, is there an aggrieved party? Is there not an aggrieved party? Who cares? If the law is in question, let's discuss it. Let's figure out exactly how it can be repaired. We don't have to have an aggrieved party in order for us to have a discussion about law.
Well,
like
you'd have to go to the legislature. And
So
get
that's
the-
how Terbeek went forward, though, and I never understood why that was allowed to go forward, and like other things required the standing, unless it's an option for the judge to kick the can, maybe. Or I think Josh probably has better perspective on that than I do.
Terbeek versus Wyoming is a case here in Michigan where an attorney from the city of Wyoming, Michigan, sued the city because of their ordinance predicated on federal banning of cannabis, and said that because the feds have banned cannabis, we can't allow any cannabis activity in our community, even though we're an entity of the state, not the federal government. Josh, if you're with us, could you comment a little bit on Terbeek and Jamie's assertion that there wasn't an aggrieved party, but they moved forward with the case anyway?
Well, no, if there's an aggrieved party, they certainly wouldn't move forward with the case. That could certainly be a reason why they would, not hear an appeal or hear a case for sure. I mean, there's lots of reasons that could have to do with standing. That would certainly be one of them.
Yeah. The ACLU jumped in on that one too with him.
Yeah. So I think actually they had taken action against John Terbeek, and then he was able to initiate the lawsuit as opposed to just initiating one on legal grounds.
To check it out. That's always been my understanding, and I never really quite got it. But yeah.
Some cases you can go to court for declaratory relief, but you have to show that you're imminently going to be harmed. I mean, there's a few ways, but that's one of them. And then you can get declaratory relief, but that would be more often used in like a civil case, like we're talking about with Terbeek. And I'm not sure on the specifics of how that started, but that case could have been started either way, by actually getting filed a complaint filed against them or declaratory relief. I'd have to go back and look at that specific case, but there's different ways to show standing. Not always an aggrieved party. But if we're talking in a criminal realm, I mean, that would certainly always have to have an aggrieved party for an appeal.
But John Terbeek, as a good attorney, certainly would have been able to pursue that declaratory route if, in fact, he had. So it's possible that there would have been a case that went all the way through without an aggrieved party. I wonder why we're unable to make that happen in the case of removing cannabis from the controlled substances list. I mean, are there different regs, Josh, for when we go after the state on something like this as opposed to going after a municipality? John's question about what happened to the case is still valid. I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to appeal. Well, I hadn't heard anything.
And I'm not aware of the specifics of John's case and what, but in order to get them to hear a case without an aggrieved party, it generally takes a specific set of circumstances in order to meet the requirements for a declaratory relief. And like I said, that usually has to show there's like imminent harm or a right is being taken away. I can't list all of them off the top of my head, but in most cases, let's say those wouldn't apply, right? So in a case like this, where a citizen is challenging the Controlled Substance Act, it probably would be hard to get that sort of relief.
Could it be because they were challenging the question as to whether or not the locality is a creature of the state, and it had that kind of a question, which would then remove their ability to say that federal law is going to preside here? Maybe it was like something like that. And they would.
It could be.
I don't know.
I'll pull the case up while we're talking and just
Okay.
I've read it, but it's been a while.
Just curious, because that was always my understanding, is that somehow that proactively moved forward, whereas all the other ones required standing. There's one in Bloomfield Township too that didn't go through for the same reason years ago. Thomas Loeb and maybe Neil Rock and others.
Jamie Lowell, let me just say something to you specifically. What a relief it's been for the last 3 years to not talk about court cases every single week. When we were on Planet together, when we were on PGT together, it's a show led by an attorney. So you expect it to be very heavy on legal cases and the legal realities. And it was such a drag because oftentimes it's stories of people who are not getting proper justice or court systems that are set up to make people fail, folks that are being required to take tests for alcohol abuse, even though there was no alcohol involved in their case at all. And really, although it was good work, and I'm very proud of what we did with Planet Green Trees, it was sometimes a soul killer, And in the last 3 years, we've been able to talk about happy things. We laugh a lot on this show. We get to feature people who are really making a difference in the world. And it's a different head than talking about the legal thing all the time. Josh Covert, I know you have to be able to relate to what I just said.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot.
However, the legal things we are talking about seem to be more ridiculous than ever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Certainly.
they haven't figured it out yet.
There's still a long
I
ways
saw
to
a
go.
great story in the New York Times this week about New York City. They said they got 1,400 dispensaries, of which 3 are licensed.
Right. And
Did you read the article from the woman who said she walked up to a white van and they were selling cannabis right out of the back of the van, out in the corner?
Yeah.
That's ballsy. That's New York, I guess.
They've
been doing that in New York. I remember 20 years ago or so.
Right.
Go to New York and say, where can I get some weed? And they sit down to the bodega. You go to the party stores, we call them in Detroit, and they get the weed right there. Over the counter. Years ago. Why can't they just legalize that? That's what I can't get.
Look at all the problems that caused.
It didn't cause any problem.
Yeah.
That was his point.
Except if they were out, then you had a problem.
I can't imagine New York City ever runs out of cannabis, hopefully.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, a particular, you're dealing with an individual who supplies you. Sometimes they can't come through. Surely you've experienced this in your years of vaping.
That's absolutely true.
I
It's
know
been
I
a lot of weepy nights wishing I had just
I
one
remember
joint.
when they used to have
Just
a
one
drought
joint,
every
it's
year.
still one joint.
Anybody remember when they used to have a drought every year? In
Yeah.
August, September?
August, right.
You couldn't get no weed.
Yeah.
And I remember like a bill. This is years ago. I can't.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
billboards that said, "You think it's dry now?" Like the police would be taunting people. I remember at least in Oakland County, some of that shit would.
I've been smoking weed for 60 some years now, so I remember a lot of shit about it,
Well, there was just a bust of 5,400 plants on a couple of residential plots a week or two ago. And someone asked me about, taking a big bite out of it. I'm like, that doesn't take a big bite out of anything. That's 5,400 plants. We have millions of plants in the state. The state itself has millions.
There's millions of plants. Right.
We've got more than that in the unregulated. So
2-3 times at least.
come on,
Guaranteed.
5,400 plants. You didn't dent. I understand why police have to go after people who are violating the law. I do. No one should go to jail for a plant, but sometimes when you're,
Why don't the police go to jail for violating the law then?
Right.
You know what?
But police are the biggest violators of the law in America. They
It's
kill
sad
people.
that black men had to die and get shot by cops for people to realize that cops aren't always our friend, because we've known this for a long time without any homicides. And now that people are paying attention, I think they realize
I'm like,
what we've
should I
known
be
about
worried?
police all the time is that some of those guys really do not have our best interests at heart.
Well, yeah, well, they're organized the other way. They're organized to keep us down. That's what their job is. The job of the drug police is to keep people from getting high and being able to get the substances that they need. That's their job. That's what we paid them for. The rotten motherfuckers. Excuse me.
As in criminal defense situations,
You know, this shit's
Josh
coming out in
experienced
Memphis,
a lot
you
of
know, where they killed
shenanigans.
that poor guy who was driving down the road, and it turns out that the police department had a policy of sending this gang of cops out to hassle people, to throw them on the ground, to get into their cars, to try and find their stash. This was the policy of this black-owned, female-operated police force. Jesus fucking Christ.
And what I found
I've
sick,
never said this before, but this is what all them SWAT teams are about.
what I found sickest about that is that we had that in Detroit 50 years ago,
Yeah, right.
Big Four, and we proved it didn't work. And these guys should have known better. Forget about people's civil rights. It just doesn't work.
Well, it's
I'll
bad.
just make an observation that a lot of these homicides of people take place as a result of traffic stops. When
Right.
someone decides to run from a traffic stop, if you're a
They
cop,
got some weed on them.
let him run. Let him run. You got his car. You know who he is. You got all that
They don't
detail.
believe in that.
Let him run. But they
When
won't.
they
Because
try to run away, they don't care if they crash into 50 people and kill them. They're going to chase
No,
them.
on their
That's
feet.
their job. They'll
When
be
they run on their feet.
reprimanded if they don't do
Good
that.
job.
That's what our society's all about, persecuting us for getting high. Excuse me. I don't mean to be a monomaniac, but here it is, you know.
Well, you've earned it.
Years ago, I got out of prison, and it's still, they got these laws on the books, but the police aren't no different.
Yeah. Certainly, we see a lot of examples of behavior that we would not want our
Maybe
police
when
to
I
have.
was smoking a joint on the street corner, they could run up and bust us. Yeah, let's have one right now. Fuck them.
I looked up John's case real quick. Josie and John were two of the plaintiffs, and it did go up to the Michigan Supreme Court. They declined to hear it. They felt that the Court of Appeals reached the right decision. It just went up to the Supreme Court and got denied in 21. Before that, the Court of Appeals affirmed the Court of Claims for basically what we were talking about, is that they were seeking a declaratory relief, and that there wasn't a cause of action, that nobody had been arrested. An arrest wasn't imminent because they had been protected by the Medical Marijuana Act from the Controlled Substance Act, essentially, is kind of in a quick reason why it was turned down, essentially.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they should take it up just to clean up their books.
Mm-hmm.
That case was all about medical too, for reference. It was before the MRTMA was part of that discussion.
Right.
Now the MRTMA inclusion makes this even more obvious, more glaring contradiction of laws that need to be resolved.
Definitely. But a lot of times bad laws stay on the books. It's kind of strange. Like, so the improper transport of medical marijuana was, created so patients would have to keep their medicine in their trunk in a case. And that's a case that, I took up to the Court of Appeals, and they ended up declaring that medical marijuana patients, as long as they're complying with the law, didn't have to follow that.
Well,
But yet that's still on the books. Improper transport still exists, but I haven't heard of anyone in probably the last, 3-4 years ago when that happened, maybe a little longer. Time goes by pretty quick, but nobody gets arrested with that anymore. It's still on the books, but it's a law that the Court of Appeals has said doesn't apply to the people the law was written, to govern essentially, right? So it's just weird sometimes how laws that don't apply anymore don't get cleaned up. It'd be great if they went through and did that, but unfortunately, our legislators don't.
They're too busy.
Like our sodomy laws, as an example. What do you? I mean, come on, really?
What's that?
Nothing. I said our sodomy laws that are still on the books.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on. None of that stuff should be on the books.
If the court rules that a law is unconstitutional, shouldn't the court have the ability to just strike that fucker right away? If the court says it's not valid any longer, or if the Supreme Court, especially, or Court of
In
Appeals,
that case, you see, the legislature on December 9th of 1971 created this new law, and they moved marijuana to the controlled substances. The next day they had the Freedom Rally, and on Monday, 3 days later, I was released. And 2 months after that, my case was overturned, my conviction. I forgot where I started now.
but the law that they used to convict you, or any other additional laws that might have been overruled, they, like we're saying, they don't automatically get changed, and I think they should.
Oh. The reason this one did not, because they changed it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They took marijuana out of the narcotics and they put it into a thing called controlled substance. And they substantially reduced the penalties from 20 to life to 4 years for sale or dispensing.
And a lot of guys got out of prison when
142, I think.
Right.
I was there. I went there.
There's some more good news. Yeah.
I went to the penitentiary to greet them as they emerged.
Nice.
That was what you call a high point.
Yeah, for anyone, right? And that's the hash bash, of course, is a celebration of cannabis. It's also a big protest and a big fuck you to the system. And certainly, as you've listened to the stories related by John and Adam today, there have been a lot of historical reasons why we needed to say fuck you to the man every once in a while, right?
Every once in a while, like every day. Yeah. Yeah, that was the hash bash, it was to say, you can pass this law, but we're not going to pay any attention to it. We're going to keep on smoking marijuana. We're going to go out on the holy sacred diag of the University of Michigan. The University of Michigan has tried to stop this for 50 years. They hate it. There's nothing they like worse than the hash bash. Would you say, Adam?
Nothing. They forced us to take them to court 5 years, 5 out of 6 years, and we won every time. The ACLU represented us. They were forced to pay our lawyer $5,000.
Oh, good.
I mean, over the First Amendment. They literally said we didn't have the right to the First Amendment.
Wow. Yeah, they're rough. And then after a while, they started sending the police in to arrest people on state charges because the university was a state institution.
Yep.
Right.
You can rely on the $5 civil infraction ticket there.
Hundreds of people 1 year.
Yep.
There was a year that they had 200 officers in one of the fire departments ready to
ride down.
Right, riot on the hatchback. I mean, it got crazy. Dick Cowan tells a story. This comes from the White House. Dick Cowan tells the story of when he was traveling he was the head of NORML at the time, National NORML, and he was heading from Washington, D.C. to Detroit, and he was on the plane, and some guy asked him what he was doing, and he said he was going to give a speech at the University of Michigan. And the guy started telling him who he was and what he was. come to find out that he finds out that Dick Cowan is going to speak at Hash Bash, and he tells him that, you know, the White House itself has said put an end to that event, and that's why they're fighting us. And the university at that point started challenging us every year. For 6 years, they challenged us until they just kept getting beat so bad that they left us alone.
When they had to pay some money, they quit. Then our university understands that. That's what they're about, money.
But this was back in the days when there were very few events like this at all in this country.
Anywhere.
And we were a major voice in the movement. So it wasn't surprising that they came after us. But now they just let it happen. I mean, the police officer I know who works for the university, who is on the diag, has told me that he was told to just allow things to happen, not to do anything. And there are
best idea.
There are people with showcases set up on the diag.
I was supposed to say that. It's got nothing to do with us. I actually last year I told them, we're not connected to this. We don't condone this. I wasn't, trying to dictate their life, but
no,
I separated myself from that activity.
What, you mean selling it on the diag?
Yeah. Well, they set up like a stand, like a little mini store. I mean, I'm fine, good if they want, but like we're not supposed to do that via our permit. So I just made sure that it wasn't us.
Right, of course not.
One of my favorite Hash Bash pictures, I had climbed up on top of one of the stone pedestals. So I was about 15 feet in the air, 10 feet. And John Sinclair is speaking to the Hash Bash crowd, blue hoodie with jeans on, kind of hunched shoulders. And Adam Brooke is shaking hands with the police officers directly behind John. And it really shows how the maturity of the whole program, because at that point, no one was trying to interrupt. Everybody was just introducing, and Adam said, "This is the guy that I talk to every year."
Yeah, and I hadn't seen that guy for 2 years, so they were happy to see me. We got hugs, and
But talk about an image that represents the acceptance of the University of Hash Bash at this particular point, right? I mean a
sporting event.
Yeah,
of course, no. It is a sporting event. We're there to have fun.
Right.
We're there to have fun in the face of the opposition.
That's exactly right. That's what it was all about.
That's what it was all about.
The
civil rights protest, we don't really have a civil right to smoke marijuana. It's just common sense that it shouldn't be illegal.
Human right.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with marijuana, period.
Yep.
Period.
We had the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers had some representatives there last year monitoring to make sure if there were any arrests that they were Johnny on the spot to be right there. So there was an attorney to watch and see. And if I remember correctly, I don't think there were any arrests.
No, they didn't arrest anybody. Listen, I used to try to get a $5 ticket. Then they raised it to $25.
Yeah, you said
and
that.
I tried to get a $25 ticket. They won't write me the damn ticket. I just wanted the ticket to frame and put on my wall.
Right.
I wouldn't have paid it. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I got a couple of them along the way.
That would be a trophy for the case, though, wouldn't it? An Ann Arbor $5
That
fine.
would have been cool. Instead, I know a bunch of police officers that have worked there for 10 years. And, they love to see us. We're not the problem. Now they send 2 cops out to walk around and say hi. And they got cameras, can see everything, but there's no police officers there. They used to surround us.
It shouldn't be considered worth the resources after so many years of it not producing an issue.
I'm going to be honest with you. By sending 2 police officers out there, I think they're doing a big disservice because there's a huge crowd there. And for the amount of people there, they normally would put more officers on the scene.
not cannabis related or anything, you might need the need for more than 2 officers to handle.
Yeah. But as long as they give us access to the power and we can control the microphone, we can control the crowd. So that was my argument for many years when they used to cut us off after an hour was, you got 10,000 people standing in front of us and you took my control away from me. So now nobody controls these people. And that doesn't make any sense.
When we did protests on the steps of the Capitol building, the first couple of, especially the really big one where we flew the banner over with the airplane and everything, there were dozens and dozens of police officers all over the place, plus a bunch of plainclothes within. Last time we did a cannabis rally at the Capitol, there was one guy on a bike.
I got a picture of him. I got a picture of that one guy on a bike reaching into his pocket, taking out his vape pen, putting it back in his pocket.
Loving that.
One time in Lansing, we did a rally, and afterward, we're hanging out at the Loft or some local place nearby where people were convening, and across the street we saw a bunch of outfitted, police SWAT like thing, and we were kind of scared. But it turns out that it was the guy coming after us to the steps of the Capitol, who was this known Florida preacher who did this anti-LGBTQ thing that garnered a lot of attention and stuff like that, and that's what they were gearing up for, issues that might be caused with that, not our cannabis.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I can remember getting phone calls like, there are 3 cop cars in front of the Coney Island. I think they're coming for you. And at that point we were like, maybe they are. Well, I don't know. And every time we'd get one of those, you'd pucker a little bit in that one particular place of your body. But you never really stopped what you were doing. You kept going forward. You didn't close the doors. You didn't turn off the sign. You kept slinging, because that until it's a problem.
They never stop us.
Well, it wasn't like New York. It wasn't like New York where they would arrest you for smoking on your stoop and you were easy to find. That would got a but I can remember sitting in front of my grow shop with the cops walking by going to their cars and knowing it was Ann Arbor and not caring. That was kind of cool. That was a cool thing, was to be in Ann Arbor and know that they did.
The capital of the Midwest, as we call it.
Right.
Well, I remember city council meetings where police officers were walking down, writing down everybody's license plate number that was in the parking lot when we were talking about cannabis, and sometimes at Big Daddy's or other places. Doing the same thing.
Excuse me. At the Johnson Cliff Freedom Rally attended by 15,000 people. They wrote down the license numbers of every car within a mile of the stadium.
Jeez, put him on salary.
Red Squad, they wrote them on little cards.
Red Squad.
We used to get telling us that there was
Someone talking.
I can't hear John. There's too much ambient.
Who is the ambience coming from?
Jamie, but he got it. Go ahead.
Shut him up.
15,000, John. Wow.
Yeah, Chrysler Arena.
Well, Lenny Sinclair, my ex-wife, got a job with the city. We were big supporters of Coleman A. Young. She got a job with the city as a member of the group that was vetting the Red Squad files and releasing them to the victims. They went through all the Red Squad files. So she saw it all firsthand. So anything I know about it, I got it from her. And 15,000 cards, man. And in Ann Arbor, wasn't even in Detroit.
Nope.
They were from Detroit. They were the Detroit Red Squad of the Detroit Police Department. We're in Ann Arbor right now, license plate numbers.
Explain to people what the Red Squad was, John, so that they know.
Well, they're like coppers that were against the left wing and the civil rights movement. And they kept, this goes back to J. Edgar Hoover, 1920. You know, 1919, 1920, they had the Red Purge of the United States because the Soviet Union had just lost their revolution and they were worried here. And so they rounded up hundreds of people and took them to trial and imprisoned them for just being left wing. Maybe they weren't even members of the Communist Party USA, which wasn't even illegal then. It was just a political position, socialism. Till one company, till USSR won the revolution, and then you had you had an enemy then, you know.
Well, the Bolshevik Revolution, which ushered in, you know,
So I don't know. Does anybody know anything about the McCarthy hearings, the Army McCarthy hearings of the 50s?
Yeah.
That was
Nope.
when they ran people. If you made a movie that had any left-wing tendencies, saying that Negroes were all right, for example, unlike your Dilbert creator, if you said the opposite of him, that black people were all right, okay, it's okay to be black, they would have a file on you. Somebody would be up your ass. They'd be tapping your phone. They'd be following your car. They'd be going around to your friends and neighbors and saying, "Do you know this guy's a red?" They did.
That sounds a lot like,
What
sounds
they
a lot
did.
like Florida.
What they have now, it all kind of concentrated down into the war on drugs during Nixon.
Right.
Because they pretty much stomped out the left wing. You see, they developed more effective measures like the COINTELPRO. I was just reading the history of the Black Panther Party, and the whole COINTELPRO thing came out again. I was a big victim of that. The White Panther Party, of which I was the chairman, was the most dangerous group in the United States because we hated racism, you see.
Right.
America is built on racism. This is a racist. They took it from the people that owned the country, and then they brought the black people in and made them slaves. That's what this country's all about. So I don't know. We're lucky we can sit here and talk about it. So I did 3 years in prison for being an advocate of these things. Yeah, for example.
That's the 3 years that you were in prison for cannabis.
I did 6 months in the Detroit House of Correction in 1966 for possession of marijuana. And then I was charged in January of 67 with giving 2 joints to an undercover police officer. I was arraigned as a 20-year to life felon because it's dispensing. I dispensed these 2 weeds to this policewoman at Christmas time. She asked me for a joint. I gave her 2. And that was my crime. I did 2.5 years in prison on that one, and then overturned the law on appeal.
But they wouldn't give him an appeal bond, is why.
They wouldn't give me an appeal bond because they wanted to lock me up.
Well, at that time, you were, as you mentioned before, a big part of the White Panther movement, and they were very much trying to destroy the White Panther movement. In fact, pinning an explosion in Ann Arbor on the White Panthers and trying to charge people with espionage.
I don't know, espionage.
I used the wrong term, but
But it's the case that led to Nixon's issues.
That was it. Yep.
Ultimately, which we did a cool segment on a couple years ago.
Yeah. Well, you know, for us to get to where we've gotten on this issue is quite a beautiful thing. And as I maintain, the marijuana movement's the last bastion of real democracy in America. Everything else is about being bought and sold politically. The marijuana movement is about people wanting to change the law and organizing and putting it on the ballot and voting for it. That's democracy. That's why they're trying to end this as part of the anti-democracy movement of today. They're trying to end the ability of the citizens to place a measure on the ballot. And then when you do, they try to use their 2/3 majority to overthrow, like when we passed the law in 2008. They didn't have anything about outlawing the country. They didn't say anything about it. 5 pages. That's what we wrote into the law, as you will remember. And now that every year they try to change it, they make it worse. It's all totally nuts, man. I hate to even talk about it.
We have an audience outside of Michigan, but in 2008, our voters approved the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, which gave personal freedoms to medical marijuana patients if they registered, and also gave caregivers the ability to take care of 5 patients each at a total of 12 plants per patient, which gave them 60 plants. And then if they were also a patient, they could grow 12 for themselves. So
72.
you sometimes hear the Michigan 72 being quoted, and it's a unique rule that applies to caregivers who have 5 patients and are themselves registered as a patient.
Right, right. Yeah, the bad part about the law was that we all had to register with the government as marijuana smokers.
And a lot of people
Now
didn't.
in Holland, they're trying to change the marijuana laws, and their biggest thing is to try and ban foreigners from the coffee shops.
So, you know, we have this.
Make every smoker register with the state as a member of a particular coffee house. Well, this is why they couldn't get it over in Holland, because the people wouldn't let them do this.
No.
So we had this registration.
We gave it up. I was happy to, to me, the question of the police was always, where did you get it? That was what that's how they ruled. Where did you get it? You better snitch on them or you're going to prison. Your lawyer say you better snitch on them. I can get you probation. And that's what they did for 50 years. Longer than that, 70 years. And I get so upset thinking about that.
You know, we have the registration part of the medical law, and then the affirmative defense part. In California, for example, everything built out there was on just the affirmative defense part of that law. I said in our medical law, we have the affirmative defense and the registration program that you're talking about.
Right.
And then, but in California, it was all based on just the affirmative defense part of it.
You didn't have to register.
Right. And you could you could prove or show a few things. And then
name in California. They don't have enough trees.
But anyway, what was supposed to have been more protections turned out to be a rise in.
Why do we need to be protected against marijuana?
I know.
Excuse me.
It's a long time of not looking at it.
It's a harmless herb.
It is.
And it gets you high. You should get a medal for growing marijuana and distributing it. Instead of getting a prison sentence, they should give you money. They should say thank you for doing this beautiful thing for other people.
You know, was it two birthdays ago, John? You did get the recognition from the state legislature. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. I got a plaque on my wall. If I had my own camera here, I'd show it to you. But they gave me a recognition.
Actually, the same day we gave you one of those the communicator award that we got.
Too. Rick, did you know that? I got one from the governor.
Yeah, I did know that, John. I was very impressed. You know,
also the state bar. Yeah, I got them on the wall in my bedroom here.
Here's my thing, John. When people are unafraid to give you praise, then they can recognize your historical significance and the things that happened. But when people were suppressed and they were afraid to say, oh, John Sinclair, he had a big thing to do. He was a big guy. He changed the law. He set 142 people free with his case.
Well, at least.
People were afraid to say those things before, but now that they're not, I think they're bubbling over with the opportunity to give you some praise. Remember, we almost got the city of Ann Arbor to call a John Sinclair Day.
Yeah. What happened with that? I was curious about that.
You got to be dead, actually.
Oh, I'm not.
Well, it wasn't pursued the way that it really should have been, and there's been turnover in council since then too. I was just recently thinking about that based on this controversy.
When hash base comes around,
I would enjoy that. We only give that honor to people who have passed away, not living people. So you have that to look forward to at some point.
Somebody wants to talk about the single convention on narcotics drugs.
Yeah, the executive branch can take action. They don't
I-
really-
I've read actually-
In Europe, they're just ignoring them now.
Ignoring them, right? They
Portugal, Spain, Holland.
Like Josh Covert mentioned earlier, sometimes laws stay on the books even though we no longer pay attention to those laws, or society's changed or the courts changed. So,
Well,
I've
Portugal
also
and Spain have changed their laws.
big time.
all these countries were
If you
forced.
go to Barcelona, they got 250 places where you can cop some weed.
Cannabis is a big thing in Europe, and that's in Spain. That's a Spanish-based European convention. You know what?
Next month.
So.
Well, I'm all geeked up now. I better have a joint.
Good, man. Spry.
Yeah, you don't need a reason to smoke one. I'm gonna have to roll another. It's 5:15. We have 45 more minutes. I need another two.
And to remind everybody, I'm not smoking on this parcel.
So it's
So
kind of
I'll
fun.
make up for it shortly. You know, after. So.
Well, the point is you can smoke or not smoke whatever you wish.
Yeah.
That's
True
your
enough.
right as a human to decide whether you want to get high or not.
Well, that's one of the things I like to point out is that, you know, there's a lot of talk about the medicinal value and, you know, should people this and should people look for that. And I always point out that John Sinclair always he wants to get high, and he wants to get higher, so he's looking
True
for
that.
better weed, and
And it's all good.
it's all good. It's all good.
I co-opted that saying of the young people. Because if this weed doesn't get you high, try another one. They can't really have it.
In this month's Cannabis Business Times, there's an article by Kenneth Morrow, who is K, known to many of us. In Michigan, done a lot of things, talking about how eventually cannabis flower will not be the preferred use for cannabis, that people have developed desires for other things, concentrates and
Things
medical.
that cost more money.
Yep, tinctures, things that don't.
The whole industry is centered on trying to get you to buy more shit.
Mhm.
Pens, lighters, all that stuff.
This is Whitney. She is the manager in training here. Also contributed a lot of
Oh, I
work
forgot
and
you
extra
were in the
time in
public
getting things
okay.
ready to go. Yep, John, this is Alex and Whitney. They're the managers of the store here. We're going to walk around a little bit. And also, you know, like Josh and company have created a platform to help with branding and get some products into circulation. And one of the first things they thought of was Sinclair. And so we hope to see those things on the shelves here at some point when all that lines up. We've talked about it a little bit before, but we'll get that together and appreciate being able to do that and get some positive flow going toward you that you much deserve.
Yeah.
But anyway, these guys work really hard and they do a great job here, and I want to appreciate them too for all the.
Love the redemption T-shirt too.
Yep, a good partner here, that's for sure. So anyway, this is a pretty cool store. So nice space, nice industrial look. Really good products.
Oh, you're taking a tour.
Yeah.
That's a big place.
Well, your stuff will be here, but somehow the idea of like quality cannabis at really good prices
That is a very large.
seems to be a good approach. Yes,
That's
a good.
big store.
This is a
You know,
nice
Work for
floor.
Lowell
Yeah.
Mish. I like that.
Yeah, man, it's nice here.
Sometimes you go to retail stores and they're so small and cramped, you might feel, claustrophobic or uncomfortable having a conversation. But boy, that sure looks like it's a very comfortable space.
Yep.
Reminds me of my favorite place, Kyle Cultivation.
Yeah.
Buddy
I love
Dalton.
that place. It's so big, it just blows your mind to walk around inside of there and see all the things that they have. And Buddy is really a great guy. I love going to that place. But I have to tell you, I don't really go to dispensaries because I'm a medical patient. Since 2008, I've had a caregiver. I haven't paid a dime for weed since 2000. That's 15 years now.
And you get some good cannabis too.
I get really good cannabis,
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful thing.
Top
Thanks, Amy.
Top shelf.
As it should be. Right. Amy, where are you at now? In the lobby?
Just came back into this office. I was going to go to the lobby. I couldn't figure out how to get out there.
Negotiate.
Well, so I guess it'll help you. Hey, security is tough around here, man. That's,
Not bad.
Well, you look a little questionable, so I can understand that.
exactly. I don't just parade around and get away with it. This I think is pretty cool here.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. There.
How long can you stay in that position, Jamie? Because that was the best shot of you all day.
A long time.
Okay.
That's what I do the yoga for those moments.
Well, glad you don't bring the camera with you for that.
Right,
Wow.
thank God.
I get back in when I have an opportunity. It's a very cool place here, actually. It's right next to a Taco Bell. There's a sign out front that says "Weed and Tacos" this way with an arrow pointing toward the store, and then "No weed, no tacos" pointing the other way.
That's actually pretty funny.
That's
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Where are the other locations of Meds Cafe other than Lowell, Michigan?
Manistee, beautiful area too. Rogers City and Alpena,
Rogers,
and
you should.
On Deck.
Remember when they used to give them people up north there such grief and Grayling, as I recall?
Gaylord.
Gaylord. Yeah,
Well,
man.
they certainly did, yes.
It was rough, man.
You know,
They got a thing in fucking, probably Ralph Simon's got a weed.
you know, and then Gaylord's situation, Josh knows all about this because he was an attorney for a lot of these particular things.
Oh,
But
really?
one of the worst things about
That
this
was
is
the
Al Witt
lowest, man.
one of the worst things about this Gaylord raids was Al Witt going to jail. One of the best things about it is Al Witt coming out of jail and then getting on city council. And that's
Wow.
one of those stories that you just love to tell people about because it really is a cross out of failure kind of a story.
And just incidentally, Al's relative, I think his cousin, is one of the stakeholders and the primary investors and drivers in this company. So it's kind of cool to have that connection. Of course, you know.
That's how I got to know Meds Cafe. Was Al Witt introduced me to his cousin, who was one of the owners of Meds Cafe, and then it kind of started working with them, and then eventually kind of took over and work just for those guys now. But yeah, Al's story is amazing. I can remember, you know, standing there at his sentencing and hearing the judge say that they say there's no side effects to marijuana, but I can think of one: jail time.
Exactly.
And then he sentenced him to 6 months in jail. Was just super hard to take. But then to see what Al did, you know, after getting out and getting on city council, and then it's not just that, but he got the community involved. You know, it was part of that case was a lot of community involvement.
Yep.
They were putting full page ads in the newspaper about jury nullification and really talking about it. And so when he ran for city council, he was able to get a couple friends of his to also, you know, run after he was elected. And now Gaylord has a really awesome city council. You know, a lot of his friends are on. The mayor's a good guy. That was one of Al's buddies that got elected. And so it really just transformed the whole town.
That's how we got the $5 fine in Ann Arbor. We elected 2 left-wing people to the city council. All of a sudden, instead of 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans, there was 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 2 human rights parties. Yeah, democracy is a beautiful thing if you use it, you know.
Yeah.
When you sit back and let the criminals do their work in the name of democracy, you're what do they call that? An accessory. It's like an accessory to murder if you don't turn in the guy you know killed somebody.
We see this in legalization programs across the United States of America. There are those written by the people that get passed by a ballot initiative where it's really what the people want. And then there are those that are passed by the legislature. And
How
as
many
we
of
know,
those are there?
it's all
Is there
legislation.
one?
It's a compromise. Pardon, John?
How many have been passed by legislatures? Maybe one?
No, a bunch of them now.
Right.
A lot of the East Coast and most of them in the recent time. Everybody that could with a ballot initiative mostly has. So everything we're seeing nowadays, as far as new ones coming on, as a result
Because
of
they're banned in several states, right?
Yep.
Right.
So we had two additional states in 2022 who came on board. I think one was medical and one was adult use, but those are both through the ballot box
That's-
and others. So
Well, we went to the ballot box because the criminals that you elected to represent you wouldn't do what we said, what we wanted them to do.
that's what everybody should have that right.
So they oftentimes will let you know
Yeah,
how much
I'll
they agree
computer
and
and
this
then maybe
is
that's not
an
my
issue
fault.
that they can get behind
Yeah,
and
I don't know,
all
my
this
computer's
stuff. And then
sticking
once achieving office, it becomes
All right. Cool.
less of a
Thank
priority
you.
and not really looked at with the same intention that we kind of thought during the campaign and stuff. That's a kind of a story. Elected officials on this issue too.
Well, I ought to let you guys go back to your other stuff instead of dominating your program like this.
John, it's a gift for you to be with us. Don't doubt that. Come on, man.
Well, I'm here, you know.
I do. And your perspective is fantastic to hear. There's a lot of people out there that need to be a little bit more educated on our history, and that's one of the things we like to do here.
Well, that's good. It's an ugly history.
Well, you left to go to New Orleans for a while, and then you came back to Michigan, right?
Well,
I mean,
I lived in
great part of-
New Orleans for 12 years, and then I went to Amsterdam for 15 years, where you can live in civilization and can buy a weed at the bar and smoke it, you know. I didn't ever have a conversation with a police officer in Holland in 15 years. Yeah. I like
that would be nice.
So, John, you know about the crackdown over there.
Detroit 5 years ago because I was ill. I got hit in the back by a bicycle. Walking down the street, a guy ran into me, knocked me on my face, and I haven't been the same since. That was 5 years ago. Then I had COPD, then I had a heart attack, then I broke my shoulder. I've been having a hard time here in Detroit, but the government's paying for it all, so it's not as bad as it could be. So I got sick in Holland, but I was just a tourist. They wanted me to pay cash for every bit of medical attention that I got. And the first one took up a whole month's worth of food money, so I had to leave.
And that was when you were
back, and I got to the airport, and I didn't feel right. And I went home, and I had a heart attack the next day. So I'm not meant to be there right now, but I mean, my experience is, you know, in Louisiana, that's about the most backwards. Louisiana and Mississippi, although they're the cradle of American civilization as far as music is concerned, they're the worst people with criminal justice. They don't have any idea what it is. They have no idea of what criminal justice really is. And so they get the worst laws that you can imagine. So I lived there for 12 years, but if you stayed out of the police's face, they didn't bother you. They didn't bother you for smoking weed. So I didn't have no problems with that. So once I got out of their face, they stopped fucking with me pretty much, except as a citizen who gets high, you know. We're all in danger of that.
You know, no matter how many freedoms we think we have, we are all still just one police encounter away from having a bad experience, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I smoke in places I know I'm not supposed to smoke. I find it ridiculous that I pay taxes to support a public park, but I can't consume if I'm walking through the wood. That just seems atrocious to me. You watch guys walk by smoking cigars and no one will give a shit about it, but I smoke one of these things and all of a sudden I got park rangers and khaki stores up my ass. No.
That's because we don't have a lobby like the tobacco and alcohol. If we did, things would be different.
Very different.
But we don't, so we have to do it through the vote. We can't just buy some politicians like the rich people do. See, the stuff with the marijuana industry in Michigan now, the rich people come in and they try to make it difficult for anybody except them to sell some marijuana.
They certainly do.
That can't be allowed.
But they want to monopolize the number of licenses. In a state like Florida, where there's a limited number of licenses, once those licenses are assigned, the competition's over. Now you just have to survive. But in Michigan, there's an unlimited license program. So every time a new community says yes to cannabis, there's a bit of a rush to try and get the licenses that become available, especially since there's such an oversupply problem right now that we're in a real demand to open retail stores in order to help alleviate that. And sometimes the guys with big money use their lawyers like baseball bats to push people around when they're denied a licensure in a city. They sue until they get what they want.
Well, it came out last week. They bribed the guy in charge of the weed program in Michigan. They bribed him with $75,000 to make a thing in the law that benefited them. It's just like everything else. That's how all these laws are shaped by people with money that hire lobbyists. Except for our laws, which we take into our own hands and pass them ourselves. They're trying to end that. Jesus.
Well, Michigan consistently rates in the lowest tier in the nation for integrity in our government. We have the worst legislature, the worst lobbying laws. Can't even sue a producer of a product if they kill you. In most instances here in Michigan, we let trucks carry more than their load in other states. We're very, very easy to bribe.
Hey.
Very well controlled by the lobbyists. Let's put it in so many words.
Yep, that's true. And who's the biggest payment of funds to lobbyists? Healthcare industry, pharmaceutical industry,
pharmaceutical drugs, legal drugs. They're all right. They aren't going to prison.
Prison industrial complex, right?
No, manufacturers, they aren't going to prison.
Yeah. So right now in Michigan, we're in a period of time where several former speakers of the House and chairmen of former committees are under suspicion for having received funds from the cannabis industry and other industries too, which went to essentially slush funds, which are labeled as social equity funds with the government. But so that's the reason they don't have to report where they get money and from whom. But it certainly seems, even if it's not technically illegal, what's been going on, it certainly seems like influence peddling at the rawest and at the most base.
Bribery, let's say it right out.
Unabashed.
They bribed this guy with a $75,000 loan that he probably doesn't have to repay.
Well, in that particular case, you're referring to a story about Rick Johnson, who's the former chairman of the medical marijuana.
Exactly, that motherfucker.
Now, in the article about that, he did have to actually pay back the $75,000 to the Yatuma brothers. He actually paid back more than $100,000 to them, and he lost some farm equipment that he'd used as a collateral for that loan. So they did come back, and because the Yatumas, if you don't know, are kind of a well-known legal family in the state of Michigan.
Real estate.
The Bernsteins, the ones that say even if you do 14 years in prison, you shouldn't be able to get a job with the Supreme Court.
Hey, you know what? So, you know what, John? I'll just take a moment to let you know that I was able to be in a small meeting with Justice Bernstein, and he was passionate about it. He has changed his position on that whole thing. And
give the guy the job back then.
Well, the guy took his job back. I think it was.
He's a punk, that's what I'll call him.
Yeah, so I was telling the Annie and
can't see. I don't care what his problems are. He hasn't got no business fucking with us like that.
I'm an
ex-convict myself. He wouldn't let me do that.
Yeah, I think he got the message. I think
I'm known all over the world for my work in art and poetry and music, but I couldn't be able to get no job with the Michigan Supreme Court with a punk like that on there.
Yeah, and I would say our caucus had Leah did a really good job at telling him, criminal justice reform is part of our platform, part of our message with the cannabis issue. And we like it when somebody's been through a bunch of shit and they're still putting themselves in a position where they can get a good job. And so we don't agree with that, but his whole point was to let us know how wrong he was and that he's going to be a help on this issue from now on.
Did he resign?
He did not resign, no, but I was telling the person, Annie in Senator Irwin's office about it. Her concern was similar to yours, John. The guy, too little, too late. The guy left to get his job back.
I'm a Detroit Tigers fan. I listen to the broadcast every day when the season's on, and nobody advertises on there more than his family. They're the legal people of Michigan. Call us. We need. And then this punk comes out with that shit, and to me, he smeared the whole family. They're all right wingers in my book now. I don't believe anything any of them ever Bernstein. I don't believe anything any of them ever says.
It was really weird to hear that story and hear
Jesus
about that.
Christ. Give me a break.
When I talked to him, I didn't
did
expect for that
14
issue
years,
to come
man.
up.
Do 14 days.
Yeah.
And you know what 14 years it's like? It's like those 14 days over and over again for hundreds of times. 14 years is too much punishment for anybody, I think.
So for those people who are out of state and may not be familiar with what we're referring to, a Supreme Court justice hired for her staff a person who has a former felon who at one point had threatened police or assaulted police or something like
Fired
that.
on police as part of the story.
Fired weapon on police. So one of the other Supreme Court justices, Justice Bernstein, complained that he didn't deserve to have a place in the Supreme Court because of his former actions. Yet, as the 14 or 15 years after he'd been released, he'd done so many amazing things to the guy's life, and he is so totally capable. And when his shit-ass attitude was pointed out in the media, he very quickly changed his tune. And as Jamie mentioned, he was very contrite about it. In fact, actually taking more time talking about his error in making that statement than he did actually the subject of the meeting he was there to attend. So,
well, yeah, he forced the light on himself.
He did, and he did not like and he's blind. So I was going to say he did not like what he saw, but I think that would be a wrong thing to say about this individual. But yeah, the point is
mentally, you know.
Thank you. You're right. And you know what? Sometimes we say things and then we regret them.
Criminal justice program that they have where they send people to prison is you're supposed to do the time, pay your debt to society, and come out and become a citizen. That's what the guy did.
And he was an exemplary example of that.
Entire philosophy that they built their whole shit on is bullshit.
So, and the Bernstein family that he's a member of is very huge in Michigan. They call themselves the first family of law, and they're very, very influential.
I know him by his first name, Sam. I listened to 15 times they play his commercial during the Tiger game, at least. I didn't count them, but you hear it over and over again.
They probably have the biggest media budget of any law firm.
Richard comes on and tells you how great they are. The daughter comes on and tells you how great they are. Sam himself tells you how great they are. And this guy says our whole mission as a Supreme Court is backwards because what we're telling you is all horseshit. We don't believe it. We don't believe somebody can be rehabilitated.
It is a tough one to swallow when you hear them. When you hear him,
it was really weird that hearing that story, hear him say, he could work anywhere else, but it's inappropriate after what he did to be here. It was really fucked up. So I am happy that he changed his position, but no, the guy did not end up keeping his job. It was too little, too late as far as that part of it goes. But
if a Ku Klux Klan takes off the robe and the hood, I applaud that. But that doesn't take them away from being a Ku Klux Klan in their hearts.
Yeah, and a lot of the big companies that try to hurt existing rights or make conditions worse have good social.
This guy can say whatever he wants to apologize, but he really believed that.
That's his first instinct to say that. That's what he believed. Yeah, that was what was in his heart because it's the first words out of his mouth.
Exactly right. And plus, he attacked this woman who was the first black woman to get a position like that as the Supreme Court.
Well, and what's ironic is that they campaigned together leading up to that point, and she lost to the incumbent.
And then he said
that she was appointed.
I never did go along with her stuff anyway. So the stuff he said after he got busted was just unbelievable.
It was weird. I agree. It was strange to hear this stuff.
Ever happened in our state. If she wanted the devil to come and work on her staff, that'd be all right with me.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the woman who's now in charge of the Michigan Republican Party actually does believe in devils and spirits and thinks that.
They had a beautiful thing in the Detroit News after she won that election, in which the right-wing columnist, the leading proponent of right-wing views of the Detroit News, the most right-wing paper in America, probably. He said the Republican Party just signed his death warrant
Right.
by electing this woman. I thought it was great. Elect the whole staff of them. Get the Perno in there, you know.
There are some pretty nefarious characters running the Michigan Republican Party right now. There's all kinds of stories running around that they are financially broke and that they're having to
That's what
borrow
they
money.
say. The Republicans are broke. Please.
That's such a crazy concept, right?
Well, that MAGA style has lost a lot of
I live
favor.
on
There's less of-
SSI. I'm broke. I ain't no Republican.
People just don't want to give to the party as it's currently staffed,
Exactly correct.
you know? And unfortunately, we don't have anything more than Democrats and Republicans to choose from. The number of independents in the United States, or Green parties or libertarians, very, very small as the number of people they are actually
because they
elected.
can't afford a lobbyist.
Because we don't have government paid for elections. If the government gave all the electors, everybody competing, the same amount of money to use for their campaign, and everybody was equal, we would have a much greater degree of representation of people. But they don't.
It's not going to happen.
Most money wins. That's how it usually is.
I believe
know?
everybody should get a certain amount of time on the mass media and a certain number of stories. Everybody should get the same. That's what I believe. I believe the lobbyists should be in prison. That's what I believe.
I agree with that.
They wield a lot of influence.
I think so. That makes some sense. That sucks that more resources could equal just gaining more votes. Has nothing to do with the ideas or the approach or the.
Well, but the more resources, they buy those Super Bowl ads, they buy those television ads, they buy those radio spots.
$6 million for 30 seconds.
Yep. I mean, it's extremely expensive. So if you're a candidate who has great ideas but is not well funded, you may never see public office.
No.
And that's a shame. Really is.
I agree with Trish. Trish, you could be. I'm
You
sure.
got to remember, the guys that started this country had plantations and owned slaves.
Yeah.
The great Thomas Jefferson had children with his slaves. That's the liberals.
Yeah.
Yep. And now we see in Florida, sometimes there's a movement there to do things like ban books and burn books and control
Tell them what courses they
college-
can teach.
Yeah, tell the colleges and universities that if you teach classes we don't like, we're going to take your funding away.
Right.
That's the most Nazi thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
That's the worst, man. And that guy's going to run for president.
Yeah.
DeSantis.
He ought
What
to
were you
get
saying,
that other
Ed?
guy as his vice president candidate. The other Republican from Long Island.
Oh,
Give him to run with him. man.
No one yet.
There.
I'm just typing a message.
Santos and DeSantis.
It was funny watching that clip of Romney giving that guy a bunch of shit.
Ah,
yeah, you don't belong here.
You're an ass.
Governor George Romney.
No,
The
Mitt
governor's
Romney,
son.
who's in the House of Representatives, towards George Santos. You don't belong here. You don't deserve it, because Santos lied his way into getting the candidacy.
Yeah.
Call him an ass.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like,
Yeah, I mean, kind of.
But that was the former governor's son that we're
The
talking
more I learn,
about.
it's like I know.
Right.
And his daughter is the one who just gave up the head of the
Former
RNC.
presidential
Daughter's the
candidate.
head of the Republican Party.
But I think
You just gave it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ronnie McDaniel, the head of the National Republican Party. Ronna.
Oh, so we're talking about the person who took over the Michigan Republican Party is the alleged nutball. Okay.
Whack job. Total nutbag. And there's a lot of election deniers out there, and I feel sorry for them because obviously they are disconnected from reality. But this particular person has said demons and spirits control our world, and certain politicians have been inhabited by evil properties, and abortion is a satanic right. So this is the person running the Michigan Republican Party, which is why who was it? Noel Coward. Who is the Nolan Finley? Is that who you were referring to, John? You mentioned
Yeah.
when Nolan Finley says, "Wow, we fucked up," that's a
I
bad
think his
sign.
middle name is Goebbels.
Goebbels, yeah.
I think I know
But
why
I'll
he's
be
Nolan
honest,
Finley.
I'd rather have her running the Republican Party in Michigan than someone else.
Yeah, I
And a
like
competent
that.
person? Yes.
She
She's,
represents me very well.
yeah, thank you. I would have voted for her.
Yep. Well, and that's, you know, in the midterm elections, typically the party in power loses votes, loses seats, things like that. In Michigan, the party in power was Democratic, so you'd expect a Republican surge. And in fact, the Republicans lost so dramatically that in Michigan, the House of Representatives and the Senate are all controlled by the Democrats, including the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, and the governor. We have what's called a trifecta, which
Yeah.
has not happened in Michigan for the Democratic Party for 40 years.
Yes.
Now, it's happened to the Republican Party quite frequently, though.
It had to do with redistricting
Yes.
as well.
Well, it had to do with redistricting and people that believe that the last election was stolen.
Well, also, what about the unions? Their attack on the unions.
There's
Right.
a big effect.
That's one of the biggest. You know, union membership in the United States is now like 12% of the workforce. And they wonder why they're getting fucked. Just
Yep.
take them the grease, bend over. Oh, we don't want nobody to represent us except the rich people.
Coming out of the pandemic, people said no one wants to work. People don't want to work. Blah blah blah. I can't get anybody to do it. The fact is, they couldn't do it at the old wages. So what
Right.
the employers found is
Needed
that
the
when they kind of hit a cost of living thing, when they actually improved the wages, they were offering to people that they got applicants. That people were just not willing to suck your dick for $8 anymore.
Right.
You know?
They wanted 25.
I mean, I'd pay it, but you know, that's just one.
Pay it.
But
Take $8.75.
I mean, you know, for an hour's worth of work at $25, if you get somebody who really knows what they're doing, that's not a bad deal. The fact of the matter is, we have a very slow moving minimum wage. We have a very slow moving society. We don't like change very quickly, and a rapid average wage increase was kind of forced upon the business community. And we see some people who still struggle with that. They still have a hard time making the new wage agreements because they have so many old bill problems. Starbucks has been very active in fighting unionization.
See what I'm saying?
Yes.
They just closed down the Starbucks 2 blocks from me and they blame it on the homeless people. I said, well, nothing else is closed down. They were the most terrible, poorly managed business in the whole area. I used to go there every day and spend $20. I get my newspapers. They quit carrying the newspapers. Duh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. When you stop providing basic services, people stop coming in. And Starbucks itself really hasn't had new products in a long time. It's just the same coffee, same
Well,
danishes.
nothing wrong with the coffee. It's the attitude.
Right.
I know. Customer service.
Yeah, customer service. Coffee's coffee. It's little beans. It goes into a cup, you know.
Oh, coffee's not coffee. Oh, I love Tim Hortons coffee. Can't stand Starbucks. A bit of a coffee nerd.
Canadian. Tim Horton wouldn't even carry espresso for a long time.
Right.
So I run the socialrevolution.org and other things cannabis related as far as websites. And when I go to Tim Hortons, it will not allow me to log on to my own website because it is a cannabis theme. It's a Canadian.
Because Canadian. I thought that was
and it
fixed.
won't let me do it. It's
I got
crazy.
I didn't realize that still went on. I remember that
Crazy.
happening.
Still. So, you know, wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
The degree of acceptance we have, and by the way, it's nationally legal to have
Also,
cannabis in Canada. So for them to even still have a ban on cannabis websites, even though it's legal in their home country, makes no sense.
I'm banned from Canada for life for being a marijuana criminal. I've been banned since 1969.
Their loss. Fuck those guys.
If they want me to go to Canada, they can send a car.
Well, John's very much like his coffee and cannabis. Like he says that, you know, you got the bean, you grind it up, you make your cup of coffee, you drink it. If cannabis gets you high, that meets the standard also.
You dig?
Cup of coffee, something gets you high.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think about this new international brid that's going to go parallel to the ambassador brid?
I think nothing of it.
I know that we're gonna get like other support, but like, I don't know.
I'm sorry?
Would I be like a fuck? Like,
Say it again, John. Didn't come through, man. About the bridge the new bridge to
We're
Canada.
gonna get like another.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I didn't even drive.
You know, I didn't take that number.
I know, but I mean,
I'm
they
not
kind of
going to Canada.
You said
they
Fuck
dislocated some historic Detroit
We're gonna have
buildings in
50
order to make.
bridges, and I ain't going.
Well, they dislocated some historic Detroit buildings in order to build a bridge, and sort of bullied their way into getting property and the rights to do it. And it was kind of an exercise in big stick businessmanship. You
Yeah,
know,
but
pushing the city around.
That's who those people are. Matty Maroon's a pro,
Yeah, real pro.
a real pro. So there was no surprise that was going to happen. I'm just happy that my buddy owns a dispensary at the end of it.
Welcome to America. Here's a joint.
Is that a luxury loud?
I'm just gonna call him at any time and be upset. If I don't answer.
Adam, Jamie's asking you which dispo that is.
Oh, they're not open yet.
Okay, I thought it might be luxury loud.
No,
What are you talking about? The place that's going to be a whole neighborhood.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Happy places.
Yeah. That
community.
That Delray neighborhood was something for a long time, and now it's a big change. So that bridge will make a big difference there,
Yeah, I guess so.
whether you like it or not.
Don't matter to me.
Yeah.
A bridge to Canada is the least of my concerns.
Oh, well, Detroit is. Go ahead, John.
I ain't going.
Yeah. Me neither. I'm afraid they're going to find some cannabis in my car as I cross the border, and then all of a
You know what
sudden
I mean?
I'm strip search in the back room. So, but Detroit passed adult use licensing for businesses.
Oh man, don't get me started.
I was hoping to get you started a little bit. We got 10 minutes left.
Oh, this is the stupidest shit I've ever seen the city council they got in Detroit. They came from some other planet. Well, 3 of them were cops, 3 of them were religious leaders, and 3 of them were social workers.
Right.
We had 283 dispensaries in the city of Detroit. They closed them all down.
The greatest
You ever see anything as crazy as that? That's what they're trying to do in Amsterdam now. They're trying to close that shit down. They don't want their money. They want a white way of life. They don't want no people getting high in their midst.
You could go to the store.
There's always a frustration watching those places proliferate in the city, just like not doing anything that made any sense to capture that momentum and fixing up of the city and the jobs and all the stuff. That was demonstrating.
The greatest things that happened in Detroit in 70 years.
Yeah.
It was
On corners that were abandoned, that were beat up, houses that were closed down. They opened these, they hired people, they got people high. It was a beautiful thing, and there was 283 of them. And they're starving. The city's starving.
I agree. It was weird.
That was back in the days prior to
Where the white people are coming in here and taking it back over again after they drove all the prices of everything down to the absolute minimum. Now they're coming in and going up. Remember the Cass Corridor?
Midtown.
Midtown, no, yeah.
Well, the Cass Corridor was the worst part of Detroit.
Yeah.
The house I lived in was a dope house.
Yeah.
You come here to get your heroin. If they didn't sell it to you out in the street before you got into the house.
Have I been flared? I don't know. I'm not sure what that means.
It was a teaser in the title for the show today.
The Tomboy. I remember the Tomboy Market where you could buy a steak and a rock at the same place.
Yep.
I miss that place.
Yep.
And then they turned it into a high-end leather store.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I heard that, I was living like a king in the Cass Corridor because I had just sold my lease back to the Penobscot building because I had a leather store and there was nobody buying any leather.
Right. Well, is that the place they call Shinola?
No, no,
'Cause
no,
they
no.
don't know shit from Shinola, you see.
Yeah, even they've changed over time.
Wow, really? They didn't change their name though, right?
No, 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 no.
They're like from some other planet. They never heard about shit in Shinola.
No, he heard of it. He thinks that's funny.
Thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
It is funny.
And he sold it. The guy I think that originally owned it sold it. I don't think it's owned by the same people anymore.
Even worse.
Right.
You wish they go out of business. I don't know. What am I saying? I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to buy nothing from them anyway. So my SSI money doesn't have anything in there for leather goods.
Which I know a very famous watch company from Detroit that produces very, very expensive watches.
Jeff Seifert took his watch off during a one of our auctions for raising money for legalization. And he got $1,400 for it or something like that.
Watches that I might add are made with parts.
I believe though somebody pays $1,400 for a watch doesn't know shit from Shinola.
They're just assembled in Detroit.
Got to get a phone to get the time on here. I don't even wear a watch anymore.
That's a cool store. They have turntables too and bikes and store as well as the watches and stuff.
Precision electronics. And
Um,
interesting stuff.
I got the time right up here on my computer.
Yeah, seriously, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, you know, like the place is legit. I live like, fuck,
I don't have one.
It's cheap. John, how many episodes is your original show up to now?
Well, I'm glad you said that. Next month in April, I'll hit number 1,000.
Wow.
This month is 995, 96, 97, and 98.
So remember telling John about this show, 5 years ago, whenever we got started. He was like, yeah, good idea. I've been doing it for years.
I'm in my 19th year now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're in season 7.
2004.
Yeah,
so-
season 7. Yeah.
They didn't have podcasting when I started. My 38th program was podcast.
Right.
Max. So,
I'm
know, it's
proud
fine.
to say.
uh,
But do I get anything from it? No. I get the pleasure of creating these radio programs and featuring my 12 disc jockeys in their great radio programs. And preserving this for the future. But does anybody send me any money for it? No.
people appreciate your consistent, great song of this.
We're auditing it.
That's for sure. Hey, so kind of winding down. Hey, Josh, appreciate you sitting in with us.
Yeah,
participating in
John.
the Soul Show.
See you, bro. Adam, you looking good? Feel all right?
Yeah, I'm feeling all right.
I'm doing better myself.
Both of you guys looking kind of spry,
Me-
more energetic than normal.
Yeah. Well,
I'm working hard. It's that time of the year.
yeah, it is, isn't it?
Getting ready for the cup. Yeah. We're going to talk about this all month coming up too. You'll be back on,
Okay,
John.
well, we didn't say anything about the Hash Bash Cup.
We will, man. So we have
Greatest
shows.
event in America.
It's an awesome event. It's surreal if you haven't experienced it. And we're going to talk about the Hash Bash.
It's the
maps.
closest thing to civilization that we have. You can go there and smoke weed with others.
It's what normal should look like. You're right, John.
Normal. Don't get me started.
You talk about the
Rick,
organization.
I know you're in charge, and before you, it was my attorney, Matt Abel, was in charge. But before that, normal.
Reverend Steve.
I felt bad about it.
Yeah, Reverend Steve, though, did a good job too.
Well,
I think contributed to where we are now.
well, that's the guy with the tie-dyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never did care for him.
Good dude. So, Josh, you want to leave us with anything, man? And of course, we'll have you back on, a few more times. And always like having your input and hanging with us.
No, I mean, just thanks for having me on, and thanks for showing everybody the Mets Cafe storefront or the
Yeah,
floor.
nice, huh?
I like that. So, but no, thanks for having me on at any
I
time.
don't know where to go when we go to Lowell, won't we?
Yeah, well, you'll be here, John. We'll be
Going
together
straight.
and spend some time, and probably Adam, because he's been itching to get inside of a dispensary. He's been talking about it.
Well, I know you guys are keeping me posted on John Sinclair weed and joints.
Oh yeah,
I'll be right back.
yeah, coming up, man. We'll be
When
talking
that
so
happens,
much.
I'll be a happy American.
Be cool if there's some stuff around for hash bash.
Yes.
So,
Well, I'm planning to be there. I'll be there in my wheelchair. I don't know if I can get up on the. It was rough the last time I went up there on the stage.
we're on that ramp, and we'll bring the mic back to you.
Good, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll accommodate you, man. You know,
Okay.
we'll bring the mic back to you and all that stuff.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah.
And if you
I
want to
always
leave
do
us,
the same thing anyway, so it don't make no difference. It's,
yeah,
a,
people dig it
It
just
does
as
make
much.
a
if not
difference
more.
every year.
it's
Yeah.
a ritual, you know.
Yeah. Hey, so
What are you
mind-
gonna say? Free the weed. Duh. Okay, that's what I'm over.
Yeah, make it more free.
There's my
There's always
message.
room for
Free the
improvement.
weed. I write about it every month in the Michigan Marijuana Report.
That's right.
Free the weed.
Yeah, John's compiling on a lot of his articles he's been writing
I
over the
gotta
years
send
in
you
the
that.
books.
Jesus, I'm
Yeah,
glad you said that. See what I mean? I forgot. We said that about 2 hours ago, and I completely forgot.
nice reference of Michigan cannabis history in there.
Yeah, I wrote every month as things were happening. I was kind of blown away when I read it over and edited it into his book.
Yeah.
The columns that I wrote for the Marijuana Report, I thought I did pretty good.
Oh yeah.
I was kind of mind blown by what I'd read.
Nice.
But I followed them from 2010 to the end of 2018.
It's a good span of time, man. There was a lot of work went on during that time. That was
Well, yeah, and it was started with the medical marijuana was legal when I started this column.
sure.
And
Magazine
then
cover.
all marijuana was legal.
Yeah.
It has a happy ending.
Yeah. It can get better, but it does. That's really cool. Is there anything else you want to leave us
It's
with?
going to
John?
get better because we aren't going to give up until they leave us alone.
Right on.
Thank you. Thank you.
We can do that. And plus, John, we're gonna be talking a lot leading up to Hash Bash. So I appreciate your time tonight, but we'll be back around too.
Okay. Well, anytime.
Discussing some more. I appreciate it,
You
man.
see, I like to talk. So no-
Yeah, well, people like to listen to it too, man. So we'll create that platform. Adam, you wanna leave us with anything before we wrap up?
No, we're good. We're just getting ready for the Hash Bash Cup.
Well, I just wanted to say one thing I should have said an hour ago when we were talking about the White Panther Party and Richard Nixon and the government and why they put me in prison. You know, our motto was, our slogan
Yeah.
was rock and roll, dope, and fucking in the streets.
Yeah,
So you can see why they didn't like us very much.
I got a pin. I have a pin made with a White Panther that says that.
Yeah. That's
Sorry,
right.
we were talking about it.
We didn't dare put that out at the time.
We just gotta get
Yeah,
this
Sounds
shit
like a nice
down.
slogan for
Good, man.
a product. To write
She's
that
like, you're
down.
still here. I was gonna leave too. I was
So, but appreciate everybody's.
We gave them a lot of trouble, though.
Mhm.
I'm proud to say we gave
There's
them
one fucking win.
Right on, man. So I appreciate everybody's.
Continue to do so as long as we can breathe.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. And goodbye.
No problem, man. And we'll be back around to continue the conversation again. It's just we got to wrap this one up. Appreciate everybody's involvement today. We'll do it again. We'll talk more about Hash Bash and some other stuff leading up to this
Yeah,
historic
hey,
52nd year. Yep, Hash Bash Cup, Little Monroe Street Fair action here and there, and other stuff going on that weekend. Really looking forward to it. And with the there's John. Okay. With the Hash Bash treasure map for Glenn, there's with it is a ticket for a day pass at the Hash Bash Cup too, so you can do a lot of stuff with that. One purchase,
Nice.
help people out, get some free gifts, and make it over to the cup as well. So we'll talk about that next week also. And John, if you don't mind, Rick, wrap us up and we'll do it again.
Fuck no.
We ain't gonna quit until they leave us alone. That's what John Sinclair just said. And if you listen to the history that we talked about today and all the different things that we said, that's a common theme. People could have quit anytime along the way, and they chose not to. And now we're in a much better place. But we have to shepherd our program forward, and we're not going to quit until they fully leave us alone. No matter how much they think they've already accomplished their mission, we have more rights that we feel that we demand. Continue to push forward for that. Don't forget our history, but don't forget every single day you're making new history, and continue to do positive things with that time. That's my message.
Perfect. Thank you. Jazz Cabbage Cafe. See you guys again next week.
I'm catching this me just fucking around.
Thanks.